In the same way that superhero movies are really big now, it kind of seemed like Hollywood was fixating on something else when I was growing up. And that thing was live action cartoon adaptations. We got a lot of adaptations of movie adaptations of things that were made famous as cartoons. Now, some of those things weren't cartoons first, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's not what we're talking about today. Like those comic books, like first, right? Or Dennis the Menace. People might look at that and say, what about that one? No, it was a comic strip. Addams Family, comic strip, not a cartoon first. But there are some movies that came out that were just solely based on cartoons. And these hold a really kind of nostalgic place in, at least in my mind, like in my heart. And I imagine people who grew up around the same time as me, for them as well. Now, I went back and watched some of these this last week, just because my kids and I were looking for something to watch. And I turned on the Flintstones and decided, hey, let's watch this. And you know what? Flintstones is pretty good. I don't want to spoil where it's going to end up on this list. But it's really good. And that made me think, well, how did the rest of these kind of hold up? And so I want to go through 8 movies that are based on cartoons. Again, these were cartoons first, not necessarily on TV, like Casper the Friendly Ghost. He premiered in movie theaters as a cartoon, like in shorts, because it was back before TV was like really a thing. But the movies we're going to talk about today are the Flintstones, Casper the Friendly Ghost, George of the Jungle, Mr. Magoo, Inspector Gadget, Dudley Do-Right, The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, and Scooby Doo. So we're going to be spanning not quite a decade, from 1994 up until 2002. Really, for me personally, those like formative years of like my real childhood. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be ranking them. So we're going to go from 8 to 10. If you like videos where we talk about this kind of stuff, please don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really does help a whole lot. Comment, all that means a bunch. But let's get to it. To start off with my least favorite out of all of these, and that is Mr. Magoo. Now, this one I did sit down and actually watch this week. I didn't get to do that with everything, but I did watch Mr. Magoo, and I'm just going to say right off the bat, it's bad. It's not a good movie. The dog, easily the best part. Jennifer Garner shows up in this movie, which is, it's weird because it feels like almost all of these have somebody in them that really kind of got really famous. And Jennifer Garner is the one in Mr. Magoo. Leslie Nielsen does an okay like Mr. Magoo impression, but it's like whatever. I do appreciate his hair because he's balding, and it isn't just shaved back. They leave a little bit on top that kind of comes forward a little bit, and I think it adds to it. But when I'm talking about how well the bald guy looks, that lets you know that I'm really kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to positive things to say. The jokes in this movie are tired. Why is Mr. Magoo involved in like some international jewelry heist thing? It's just too much going on. But yeah, it's just not good. This movie was redeemed for me, though, as an entertaining thing when we reached the end of it. And I want to share with you what I saw. Like as soon as the movie ends, before the credits roll, this pops up on the screen. It says this: the preceding film is not intended as an accurate portrayal of blindness or poor eyesight. Blindness or poor eyesight does not imply an impairment of one's ability to be employed in a wide range of jobs, raise a family, perform important civic duties, or engage in a well-rounded life. All people with disabilities deserve a fair chance to live and work without being impeded by prejudice. So the thing about Mr. Magoo, I guess if you don't know anything about Mr. Magoo, is he's blind. Like he is very nearsighted. And which means that like he, like in a cartoon, he's getting into all kinds of issues, but then he's like barely, like by luck, gets out of them, or somebody helps him on accident and his dog keeps him safe. And in the movie, Mr. Magoo is portrayed as like a complete idiot. But it's not like there's anything different from him than anybody else, except for the fact that he's blind. So the movie is really just hitting that point of like, he's blind, and that makes him not be able to do anything. And so I can understand, like, more than most things, like where there's like these kind of like warnings or these things at the end of them, where this one is coming from. I feel like this is the kind of thing where nowadays Disney would be like, we're making a Mr. Magoo movie. And then Twitter would find out, and then they'd be like, no, you're not. And then Disney would be like, I guess we're not making a Mr. Magoo movie anymore. Or they'll be like, we're finding a way to make sure that it's an accurate representation. Either way, this movie isn't good. It doesn't hold up. Leslie Nielsen should have been doing something else with his time. Next one for me is Dudley Do-Right. This is not one that I got a chance to watch again this week. This automatically ranks higher than Mr. Magoo because it does kind of go for that, the aesthetic of the cartoon and everything. Sarah Jessica Parker, Alfred Molina, Dr. Octopus is in this movie with Brendan Fraser. Brendan Fraser's riding high on that George of the Jungle popularity, which we'll get to. I know it's kind of weird that they cast him in both. To me, anyway, it feels kind of lazy. Like he's getting pigeonholed in that, into like this kind of like, you're gonna play the cartoon. You're the cartoon guy. I don't know if that's necessarily something that I would want to be. But work is work. Like with all of these movies, there's jokes that have not aged well, both in like just the references don't work anymore. Like they aren't funny for that, but then also in like how appropriate they are, or like insensitive they are. So I don't know. I do like the costumes and the set design and all that stuff in this movie. It's pretty good, but it's not as a whole good. It is a lesser version of George of the Jungle. The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, it doesn't break very high for me either. It's just a lot of kind of like impressions. I do like the characters, Rocky and Bullwinkle, and I like Boris and Natasha and everybody, but I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. I think it's cool seeing like the 3D characters and everything. I mean, of course, the graphics, the effects don't really hold up that well, but it's kind of the charm of it at this point. I don't understand like these movies, like on the posters and everything, why they're always inferring like swearing in these children's movies, right? Like the summer, it's not the same old bull. It's like, why is that the catchphrase for the movie? This seems kind of weird to me anyway. Yeah, I don't remember this one. I didn't get a chance to rewatch it. None of it sticks out in my mind. Like I can't think of anything that happens, which is not true for all these movies. Like there's some I didn't get a chance to see this week that definitely stick in my brain and definitely are things I'd like to see again, but not this one. I did watch Inspector Gadget, and this one I put it at 5 because to me it is inarguably just bad. Story-wise, there's not anything really going on. Like it's not a coherent, I mean, it is a coherent story, but it's not actually put together. It is, you as the viewer have to like connect the pieces. Sorry, Mike. You as a character, as the viewer have to connect the pieces of what is happening. It's like, here's a scene, and then it's just like transition, here's a different scene, transition, here's a different scene. And it's not like they actually like kind of naturally go together and everything. I don't think Matthew Broderick is a good choice to be cast as Inspector Gadget. His character in this is nothing like his character in the cartoon. If you don't know Inspector Gadget, I'm not doing a very good job of explaining what these cartoons are. So I apologize for everybody who... I'll do better from here on out. I apologize if you didn't grow up watching any of these. But Inspector Gadget is like... he's an inspector, so like he's solving crimes and everything, but he is... like kind of a robot, and he's got like he's got a helicopter hat, and he can extend his arms and everything. He's got a car that does crazy stuff, but he's an idiot, and he has a niece named Penny, and then she has a dog named Brain, and they do the real work, and he just kind of bumbles around, and he fights a faceless person named Claw, who in this is not faceless and gets more face time than pretty much anybody else. Though I don't hate Rupert Everett. I kind of like Claw in this movie, just with how over the top and stupid it all is. But I don't know. It feels almost like an in-name only. The movie plays out like RoboCop. Like, it's his kids. This is like baby's first RoboCop. That's what this movie is. And so, I remember seeing this movie for my birthday. And so I have, and we had the VHS. I have very fond memories of watching it, but it's not very good. Number 4 for me is going to be Casper. For me, going here on up, is going to be movies I think are at least decent, right? Like, not necessarily great, but they hold up, right? So I think Casper holds up. I like his uncles are, fun characters. Casper is a friendly ghost. That's the premise. And then Christina Ricci and Bill Pullman move in, and then he falls in love with her, and then there's like a ghost machine that could bring ghosts back to life, and it's way too complicated of a plot. I'll give it that, because like Casper's dad is like trying to make a machine that could bring his kid back to life. That's one thing about this movie. It's kind of depressing, the fact that our main character is like, he's a ghost, and so I don't even know is it the right call to answer that question, how did Casper die, or should you just let it be? Should you just be like, Casper's a ghost, and that's it? Don't ask. We don't want to tell you. We don't want to think about it. But instead, this movie is like, Casper got a sled from his dad, went out sledding one day, got really sick, and never got better, and died. And so, yeah. I don't know. It's fun. It's one of those movies that every Halloween is like, we should probably watch Casper, just because it's spooky enough because there's ghosts in it, but not too scary for the kids. Now, for me, George of the Jungle is, like, I gotta say, it's really, really stupid. But this movie knows that it's stupid, like, in a way that I don't think happens that often. A movie tries to play off how dumb it is and actually have it work in a comedic way. But this movie kind of pulls it off. Brendan Fraser is really good in it, and the animatronic stuff in it with Ape, it's fun. Again, this one I think works better because the plot is not too crazy. Like, he goes with Ursula back to the city, and then they come back to the jungle, and that's it. Like, there's no like, they're gonna burn down the, at least I just watched this one not too long ago, but I don't remember if there was like there's no like crazy like, and George is just to save the whole jungle or the whole world or anything like that. There's no special machine, but yeah, that's fun. I think it's good. George of the Jungle, that's an easy number 3 for me. Now, the movie for me that started this whole idea, though, the Flintstones, number 2. I don't know, like, this is the one that is the best, I think, one of these cartoons coming to life that we have seen. Like, it's the whole world of the Flintstones brought to life in a way that it's fun to see and fun to watch, even if you don't know anything about the Flintstones. Like, my kids, I don't think they've ever seen a Flintstones cartoon, but they were into this, like, because there's dinosaurs, and they're like, well, why are their cars like that? And just seeing all the different inventions, and it's just fun to see in that way. But then also, this movie is cast like almost perfectly. Like, I don't know, I'm kind of hit or miss on Rosie O'Donnell as Betty, but literally everybody else is perfect. Like, you can't remake this movie in this live action way, because I don't know who you would put in these parts. Like, I know they tried Viva Rock Vegas, but then you end up with a Baldwin as Barney Rubble, and it's like, where are we? How have we gone from Rick Moranis to this? And so, like, I'm not about that. But just like, John Goodman is born to play Fred Flintstone. You get Rick Moranis, it's just like so perfect as Barney. And I don't know, it's just fun. It's got one of those endings that happen in like 90s and 80s movies where a movie is a comedy like the whole time, but then for whatever reason the end of it becomes like there's a big action set piece, and I know that doesn't really happen as much anymore, and I kind of miss it. Like there's this movie that I remember renting called Carpool. And it's about this kids getting driven to school in a carpool, and then like a thief hijacks their car, and like sure, like and then they're like going around and they're doing things, but like the end of the movie is like a Ferris wheel action scene in it, and I just remember being like, man, action scenes in comedy movies, it's just what's supposed to happen. But then it turns out that like that's not really what's supposed to happen. But this movie does that too. I know referencing Carpool is probably like, it's really good for retention and everything, but on the video, but I like it. And Halle Berry and oh no, I'm gonna forget his name, from Dune and from Twin Peaks. I'm not gonna forget his name because I'm gonna look it up. Just 1 second. Kyle MacLachlan. There he is. I knew it. Psh, guys, don't pretend like I didn't know it. Like they're great too. Like as villains, I feel like when in a movie like this, you kind of have to add in a new character as a villain because you don't want to kind of like sully the reputation of like an old character or something, right? All that being said, that's a good little segue into my number one, a movie that I just will say flat out, no arguments. I mean, I'll say this for the Flintstones too, but Scooby Doo. This movie is good. And I don't care what anybody says about it. Is it high art? Probably not. Do I, Seth Bailey, who cries at everything, cry at the end of Scooby Doo? Yes, absolutely I do. There are moments in this where, I mean, I don't know, to say something as cringy is overused. But there are moments in this movie where I'm actually like, ugh, like I wish they just didn't say that. Like when Velma says, let's get jinky with it. I'm like, don't do that. But I really do love this movie. Talking about the Flintstones being perfectly cast, this movie, it's just amazing. It's just perfect that they got this. And so perfect that Matthew Lillard went on to voice Shaggy in the cartoons for like 2 decades. And you know, it's fun. It pokes fun at the source material with the ultimate reveal of the villain, which I don't think I necessarily want to spoil. In case you haven't seen the Scooby Doo movie, I do recommend it a whole bunch. And if you haven't seen it in a long time, I think it's worth the watch. I don't know. I just like the characters. I like Scooby Doo. I like Shaggy. I mean, Fred and Daphne used to not be that fleshed out. Since this movie came out, there's been a lot more in kind of developing who they are and everything, and I think it's all been good. It's written by James Gunn. I mean, his original script and ideas had to really kind of be, you know, they were toned down, and it's not the movie they originally wrote, but like I think that you can see from this like kind of those little building blocks to the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and then the Suicide Squad, like him taking these groups of people and giving them all their moments to do the things that they're good at, and so that nobody is left out. And you know, I can see why you would go with this guy to do that kind of stuff. To be fair, there was a long time between this and Guardians of the Galaxy, but either way, I'm glad that it worked out. So there we go. That is the list. Let me know what you think. And also, yell at me about some movie you think I forgot that is actually based on something else down in the comments below. Or if I actually did forget something that was just based on a cartoon. I know you're going to say Transformers or G.I. Joe. They didn't really kind of fit the vibe I was going with here, right? I was kind of talking more comedy cartoons. So those are fair. He-Man, same way. You could argue those are just commercials for toys. So maybe that's how I get around it. But I do hear you. I realize that those are valid arguments. And so thanks for watching this video. Thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you next week with another video. Until then, you take care. See you then.